Yeah.
So what I want to actually do is when the semester starts, I'd love to intro with your stuff and intro with our chat here. And so we can kind of set the vibe for as we go through semester and just see what you can add to that. So to start with, if you could give us a little bit of your background story. So I'd love to know what it is that made you decide to become a paramedic and which uni did you go to and what happened after that. So whereabouts do you work and what is the environment like there?
So I love it when people ask me this question. Usually most people have like this real lifelong ambition of wanting to be a paramedic, and that's why they got into it. But mine was actually not that. I was sitting in my flat one day and I was working as a waitress and also as a office assistant, and I hated it. And I really wanted to get into a new career and a new job. I had no clue what I wanted to do. And I literally spent the evening just binge watching telly, as I did most evenings. And I ended up watching 999, What's Your Emergency? And it was following this crew dealing with, Saturday night and drunk people. And I watched it and I thought, well, that's quite a cool job. Like I might be interested in doing that. And then I literally rang some unis the next day, one being quite local to me. And on the phone, they said, oh, we're holding interviews over the phone for clearing now. Would you like a brief interview over the phone? I mean, I was in my pajamas and I was a bit like, oh, okay. So I had an interview over the phone, and then she said, yep, that's all great. Can you come in for an interview next week? And I was like, yep, I'll be there. And that is literally how it happened. And then I had another interview the next week, and then I had a fitness test, and then I got accepted into university, and it was a complete whirlwind. I mean, it's the best thing I ever done.
Yeah.
But it was completely out of the blue. And as soon as I got it, that's when I was like, yeah, love this. But yeah, it was a bit of a random choice of mine.
That's funny. And you're so right, because so many people are just like, it's my ambition. I've wanted to do this for 10 years and everything that I aspired to is be a paramedic. And I was exactly the same. I worked with this guy and he's like, oh, I'm applying to be a paramedic. And I went, oh, that sounds all right. So I applied and I got in and he didn't.
Oh, really? I know. All my friends were like, what? You're doing what? I was like, no, I know. It's a bit of because I think it's more of for me, it was more of almost a self-confidence level. I thought, oh, I'm never going to be good enough to do a job like that. And then when I actually got through the interview stages, I was a bit like, oh, all right, well, let's give it a go. And obviously it ended up going from there. So, yeah, I got into Anglia Ruskin University in Chelmsford, and obviously done a bachelor's honours degree for 3 years there.
Mm-hmm.
And then after that, I actually done all my placements with the London Ambulance Service through my university.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I qualified, I actually applied straight for the London Ambulance Service because I loved it. And I'd already made some friends as well. And luckily I got that job, and I've been working there for 2 years now, or just over 2 years, and I love it.
Excellent. Yeah. That it's a very straight path, really, when it comes to study. It's once you get in there, you put your head down. So how did you go, like, at university? Had you been to university before you did paramedicine?
No, so I went actually a little bit later. I think I started university when I was 24.
Mm-hmm.
So when I left school, I had no interest of going to university. I just wanted to work. And then obviously when this came up, I'd never even been to university before I'd had the interview. So I never saw what it was like. And then when I went to the interview, I was like, oh, this is really cool. I actually want to go. So I had to do a bit of extra study and stuff like that to prep myself. But yeah.
How did you find adjusting to actually being at university and submitting assignments and the the workload and all that kind of stuff? Because no matter where you go, I'm sure it's the same everywhere, really, isn't it?
Yeah, it was a big jump because obviously I'd had a big gap as well. I wasn't used to the whole homework and writing essays and stuff, so I kind of had to reteach myself proper English, and it was a lot. But I must admit, the first year was more practical, than it was doing assignments, which massively helped me, because I think if we'd have gone straight into assignments, I probably would have been a bit daunted by it all. And then as the years got on, it got a bit easier, because you get into the swing of it, of remembering how to write essays and how it's meant to be done.
Yeah.
So it was okay. And like I say, the university was quite supportive and they helped you through it. And I had some really good lecturers as well.
Oh, that's good. So did you feel, did you get much support as far as like adjusting to all of that kind of stuff? Because I know that quite a few people say that, you know, that adjustment, it's very different to school. And as far as the expectations on you, as far as work and submission, so you treat it a lot more like an adult as opposed to school being the environment where you're all kind of supported and everyone's nurtured going through.
Yeah, you are. It's one of those, yes, they do treat you like an adult. So if you are struggling, I mean, this is how it was in my university. If you are struggling, there was plenty of sources to help you, but you did have to source that yourself.
Yeah.
You had to be the one to speak up and say, look, I'm really struggling with getting, you know, my essays to a better standard. And then they had obviously all the various groups within our university which you could go to and speak to someone. I mean, quite often anything to do with our essay based or anything like that, we'd go to the library, and they held classes all the time that you would do in your own time, which were purely for, you know, citation and getting references and stuff like that, so you could learn.
Yeah.
But they were never just hand fed to you. You had to source it yourself.
Yeah. It's funny. It just seems like such a barrier, especially in the start, with people seeking support, because I think they feel like that they're in there and they have to just do everything themselves, rather than thinking, oh, do you know what, this is actually really hard. I don't, you know, I need to get someone to kind of give me a bit of guidance. And there's nothing wrong with sourcing help, really.
No,
so
there's an abundance of help.
Yeah. So your structure of your degree, so the first year you were primarily skills and prac based. Did you do placement in your first year?
Yeah, we did. We actually done placement 3 months after starting the first year degree. So it pretty much was all practical in the first year. It was pretty much primary surveys and BLS and just getting ourselves used to that. But yeah, we've done our first 10 weeks in December of so that was pretty daunting.
How did you find going on placement? Because really, so you would have been like 24, 25 or something like that, going into so many situations that you would have just like being completely different than what you would be used to. It's totally outside the comfort zone.
I was terrified. I was absolutely terrified. I remember the night before my first placement, and I literally was pacing my living room, pacing, and because I thought, I have no idea what my mentor is going to expect of me, how much they're going to want me to do. And I was just really terrified of the responsibility that I was going to be given, because at that point I really knew nothing and I wanted no responsibility, so I was really worried about that. But I mean, my first year mentor was amazing. She was so good. From the moment I walked in, she was kind of like, relax, you know, watch me today, and then from there we'll work on it. And I was just like, that's literally what I needed, and it made me feel a lot better. But my first year placement, I saw some of the sickest patients I have still seen to date.
Wow.
Yeah, so that was fun.
It's the luck of the draw, isn't it? You know,
it really is. It really is. I mean, I have friends that hadn't seen a cardiac arrest the whole time they were a student, and then I've had other friends that had like 10, and they'd had 3 pediatric arrests, and you're just like, it really is just luck of what you get. I say luck, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I don't know if it's luck, but
I know. It's really interesting. I remember when I was first starting out, and I was about the same age as you were when you started out, and I was nearing the end of my training, and I had this guy who was retraining and coming back in after being a paramedic for like a certain amount of time, but being like in management. So he was going back on road to be clinical. And he said to me, Tara, if you weren't nervous and apprehensive, I'd be worried that you were doing this for the wrong reasons. And I reckon it's just about the best piece of advice that anyone has ever given me to this day.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree, because I remember how nervous I was. And I think I always say this whenever I work with someone that's relatively new or a student. I always say, if you feel is over your head, please say, don't feel like you have to just keep going on and pretend you know what you're doing, because that is where either accidents happen, or it's not, you're a student, you're not supposed to know. You are supposed to be learning. So don't be afraid to say, I don't know, help us out and stuff like that. Because I think there was plenty of times when I was a student where someone would say, oh, we need to do this because this patient's deteriorating. I'll go, yep. But really I'm going, I have no idea what you're talking about.
Yes. But really in that space, you could turn around and say, oh, look, would you be able to talk me through that? Because I'm not familiar with that. And it's totally fine.
Yeah, I still do that now. Even registered after 2 years, we'll get a job sometimes and there'll be, say, another colleague on scene, and I'll go, look, I'm going to do this, but I haven't done this in 2 years, so can you do it with me over my shoulder? There's no judgment. It doesn't matter how long you've been doing it. You could do the job 20 years, but if you haven't seen something before, or it's been a good few years since you've done it, there's no shame in saying, help us out,
100%. Yeah, 100%. And paramedicine, even in the 20 years that I've been involved, it's so much more complex now than it used to be. There's so many more interventions. We have so much more knowledge now than we ever used to. And, we're only one person, and you've been at work, you're working a really busy shift, you're 10 hours in and you've got a really sick patient. We're all human, aren't we?
We are all human, and in this job, we have a lot of responsibility. And I think especially when I was a student, I knew what the job was about. I knew what I was getting myself into. However, I don't think I didn't realise how much responsibility would be put on my shoulders with certain jobs. And it's a lot to take physically, mentally. Sometimes you've got jobs that are physically draining, others that are mentally draining, and it's a lot.
Yeah. So when you were talking about, feeling that anxiety, I use the word anxiety. I don't know if that's how you would describe it, but that sense of apprehension, how long did it take you for that to really calm down realistically? Or has it not?
That's what I'm thinking. I'm like, has it? I mean, definitely the whole 3 years of being a student, always had it.
Yeah.
I mean, it was less as a student than when I qualified, because I always had help. I always had a mentor there. So if something went a bit too much, I don't really understand what's going on here.
Yeah.
I could back off a little bit, and then, they'd crack on. And then when I qualified, that anxiety went through the roof, because that support, I say, wasn't there anymore. It always is, but it's not the same.
Yeah,
you are registered now. You are expected to do what you got to do and get on with it. So the anxiety went through the roof. And I'd say it's only quietened down for me in probably the last 4 months. And that's since I've been back at work after taking some time off.
Yeah.
So it's kind of always there. And I think it will always be there, because like you said, if that went fully away and you had complete confidence and, nothing's going to scare me, I think that's when things start going a bit wrong.
Complacency.
Yeah.
Really. Complacency. So we come to the point, and I'd love to talk about your book, because I've been told that you've written a book, and I think this would be something that would be really interesting. Can you tell us a bit about your book?
Yeah, so it's called Just a Few Bumps. And basically I've been writing it on and off while I was a student and at the beginning of my career. And it was just sort of some of the interesting jobs and stuff like that. And then a little while ago, I took myself off the road for welfare. I basically, I don't know how to best put it. I got so stressed, and I'd had a lot of bad jobs in a row, which I'll go over in sort of more detail, but I decided to take myself off the road because it had got dangerous for me, and then also dangerous for my patients. I didn't want to be responsible for their care when I was feeling the way I was feeling.
Yeah.
And while I was off, I basically decided to turn the book, or turn my notes to say, into a book. And the reason was because I felt, when I took myself off the road, I felt that I had failed, that I was quitting, that I wasn't strong enough for the job, and I really got into a dark place because I felt I can't hack it. All these people can hack it. They've been in it for 20 years and I've only done this for 2 years and I've had to take myself off the road. When actual fact, everyone needs to do that. And I looked at all these notes and I thought, how many students are coming out thinking that it's, this job is all about blue lights and saving lives and doing all this stuff, which it is to a certain extent. But I was never able to prepare myself for what was to come because no one had told me what it's really like. So I sat down there one day and I thought, right, I'm going to start from the beginning, start from before university, getting into it, the first year, the second year, the third year, the placements, how I felt, what I knew realistically. Do you know what I mean? And I'm very honest in the book. So like my first year section, I say, I had some of the sickest patients I've ever seen. I mean, I think in my second week, I'd been to a stabbing, an RTC with a bus involving a 2-year-old child and all these sort of things, an overdose of heroin. And I had no idea what I was doing. But I remember at the time trying to pretend that I did know. And I kind of wanted to say to people, it's okay that you don't know what you're doing. Be honest and just do the best that you can. So I went through about the 3 years at university and how it all built up and what I'd seen. And then actually what it was like being qualified. Do you think that's going to be amazing? I've done it. I've done the 3 years of uni. That's over. I'm qualified now. Well, actually, that's where the hard work begins. That's where it really starts because, now you've got all this responsibility of these patients and you are in charge of their lives sometimes. You're never going to have a responsibility more important than that. That's someone's life.
Yeah.
And it got to the point where I had a very sick child as one of my jobs. It was a 10-year-old girl, and when we arrived on scene, she was struggling to breathe. And it was just me and another crewmate. We didn't have any other responses on scene, and we had to make the decision to go without any help or stay and wait for help, and we decided to go. So on the way to hospital, it was just me and this child in the back, and she started to stop breathing. I had to breathe for her, and it was one of the most horrendous days of my life, or the horrendous moments of my life. And I just remember afterwards when we got her into hospital and we handed over, and I couldn't hand over to the doctor what had happened because I couldn't speak. I was so scared and so just in another space. I kind of handed over the patient, and then I just sort of looked at them and said, I've got to go. And I walked outside and cried for about 20 minutes and then carried on working. And I kept going for another 2-3 weeks. And from that point, I just kept getting sick patient after sick patient, where it got to the point where I couldn't do any more. And I took myself off the road, and I thought, I wonder if anyone else is feeling the way that I'm feeling, because no one was speaking about it. No one was, we talk about the funny jobs, or we have a bit of a giggle in the mess room when we're having coffee, but no one really talks about the times where they cried, or it was really hard and they went home and had nightmares or stuff like that. No one talks about that. So I decided to put it into a book. And I mean, I wasn't even really going to publish it. It was more for myself, my own mental health, to get it out on paper. And then it basically just finishes up saying, this did happen. This is the dark space that I got into. I got some help through work and through family and friends and stuff like that. And it's always going to be there, but it's a bit better now. And now I'm carrying on. So it's basically just, or if it does anything for anyone, for any student in particular, because it is really based at students, that you're not on your own. If you do get scared, if you do get worried, or if this happens, that happens, you're not on your own. So don't worry about it. Keep going. Or if you need to, you can talk to someone. Because I know I didn't at uni. There's definitely this sort of way of, I had this job. This was the best one. I did this. I did that. But no one actually sort of says, I saw this the other day and it really got to me. Yeah. And I don't know why. We should talk about it more.
Definitely.
Absolutely. We're not designed to see the things that we see on a daily basis. As human beings, I don't believe that we are, but we do it anyway. Yeah. And it needs to be spoken about more than it is.
Yeah, and I think it's a lot more common than what is actually documented, because, like you say, I think that there's a lot of people out there who experience exactly the same, who are all amazing paramedics, and it doesn't mean that you can't do the job. It just means that your cup is full. You know,
oh
and
yeah,
we all get like that, you know, whether it's just work or whether you've got work and you've got stuff going on at home, you know, in your personal life that also contributes to your well-being and your ability to function at work. Because essentially when you're going into work, you're giving part of yourself over, really. That's how I've always felt when I've been doing it. And I'll definitely put the link up for the students for your book, because I did see that you can get it on Amazon. Is that true?
Yeah, you can. Yeah, you can get it on Amazon.
Yeah, so I'll put the link up for anyone who's interested in your book to have a look at, because I think that there will definitely be some people who would like to read that.
Oh, that'd be great.
So as far as work goes, so this obviously, so if this was this year, so this has obviously happened right throughout the period of COVID, and you're working in London during the height of the COVID experience. How is that? Surreal?
Yeah, I mean, funnily enough, when I took myself off the road, I had about 2 months off, and I actually went back because of the COVID outbreak. And my colleagues were messaging me saying, this is happening, this is craziness. And I thought, no, I've got to go back. I've actually got to sort of do my bit and help out. And before I was allowed back out on the road, I actually had to have a 3-day sort of induction almost on the new policies and procedures that were coming into place. And they were changing on a daily basis. It was, for a certain amount of time anyway, it was relentless. It was just either, really sick people getting blued in all the time. And the strangest thing was that because of all of our protocols being changed and the PPE gone insane almost, it really changed the way that we've done jobs. I mean, for cardiac arrests, we had to wear, put on a full Tyvek. We have to put on these full masks, double gloves, goggles. And you imagine you're trying to get to someone, a 55-year-old in cardiac arrest, and you're like trying to get all this stuff on. And it is stressful. It was really stressful. And there was just a lot. It was absolutely relentless for a while.
I found the PPE really difficult to communicate with, and that personal touch that you always feel is so important when attending the majority of the jobs that we go to. It was almost like that's missing, and I really felt that loss of not being able to connect with people.
It became like a military operation. It was like, right, go in, wash your symptoms, standing from the other end of the door, like a real quick set of obs. Okay, you don't need to go to hospital, sign here, we're going to do paperwork outside, because everyone, we had to keep our distance, but at the same time we still need to do our job. But because nearly every patient was COVID, you're absolutely right, that personal care and compassion and everything was getting lost. And it wasn't nice, but you had to do it, and you kind of almost like handing paperwork over from a distance and stuff like that. And I mean, it got to the point as well where the hospitals were basically saying, our patients need to be of a news score of 7 or above to come into hospital. And you're going to some of these patients and you're going, I want to take you to hospital. You don't look well, but you're not sick enough.
Oh, that's terrible.
To go to hospital? Yeah, it was
We'll just come back in a couple of hours when you deteriorate.
That was half of our advice sometimes, was like, you'd actually go to the family member and say, look, call us back as many times as you need, but if they look sicker in a little while, call us back straight away. And that's pretty much what we were doing until their news score got bad enough. It was horrible. But it's what needed to be done.
Is that still as rampant as it was? Because I know you guys are going through a second wave at the moment.
No, it has calmed down a lot, which is good. And I think as well, because everyone knows what the symptoms are more, they're not calling as much when they've just got symptoms that they know they can isolate and stay at home. So no. And I think as well, because back then everyone else was scared to call if it was just normal, you know, chest pain, abdo pain, things that we get. Hello.
That's William.
Hi William, you're right.
It's bedtime. So.
It'll be my bedtime in a minute as well.
I know, it's a bit like that, isn't it? Yep.
Yeah, so like all the other stuff that people would call for, they weren't calling anymore because they were too scared, especially scared to be around us. They didn't want to go to hospital. Whereas now people are starting to call again, as, you know, as they should for when they need us. So it's getting better, but it's still not quite there.
Yeah. How do you see that panning out in the future? Do you think we're on the similar trajectory, or do you think, you know, with the vaccine and stuff coming in, that things are going to get better?
I really don't know. I think the way that we practice now is going to carry on for a long time. I don't think it's going to change once the vaccine's in. And to be honest with you, I mean, wearing a mask is annoying. We all know that. But it actually makes me think sometimes, do you know what? I used to go into a patient's house that had DMV and, you know, coughing and spluttering, and I wouldn't have a mask on, and I'd be listening to their chest while they're coughing in my face.
Yeah, yeah.
And now I look at it and think, I probably would still wear a mask for a lot of jobs.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Whereas before you didn't, and you didn't wear aprons and stuff like that. But so I don't think they're bad.
Yeah.
It's just, you know, sometimes when you have like really sick patients, I wouldn't be it sounds a bit weird, I don't want to encourage it, but I find a lot of the time when they're really, really sick, those, you know, the double gloves and everything, they kind of go out the window because the patient does come first. For me anyway, that's just my opinion. My patient comes first, and I'm not going to sit there and doff and de-doffing all this correctly. I want to make sure that they're okay first. And I think as time goes on, I think that will calm down a little bit.
Yeah, that's the same vibe that I'm feeling as well. I think that there's some things that are definitely permanent change, and also agree that that there's some things that I've looked back in hindsight and thought I probably should have done a bit better, you know, like as well as decontaminating after jobs, especially myself, keeping my boots outside, not bringing things into the home, all that kind of stuff. Like there's things that you've changed, which is definitely improvements.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, so that's a fascinating story. What is next for Emma?
Well, trying to
this wasn't on the question list, but I'm just going to throw it out there anyway.
To be honest with you, I'm going to stay with the London Ambulance Service. They've been amazing, and I wouldn't want to work anywhere else at the moment anyway. So I'm just going to see how much I can develop my career with LAS, because they have fantastic opportunities to grow. I mean, there's opportunities getting, you know, emailed out all the time. Would you be interested in doing this? Would you want us to comment doing that? So to learn other skills, it's a fantastic place to work. Yeah. So I'm going to see what's about and try and go for things and just learn as many avenues as I can, because being a paramedic isn't just being about being on an ambulance and being on the front line. Yeah. There's so much more to it. You just need to learn which area you like, really. Yeah. So that's my aim at the moment, learn in all the areas that I like and then go from there.
Oh, that's a great, sounds like a great future plan, really, you know. Always have a couple of different options that you're looking at. That's what I've always thought about, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, so, absolutely.
Yeah.
Because I think as well, when you're in university, you think, oh, I'm going to love trauma. I'm going to go for HEMS. I'm going to do this. And then actually, when you go out on the road, you think, I actually really like the urgent care stuff. I think that's more my calling and stuff like that. You never know until you're actually out doing it all the time what you find really interesting. And then you can set a goal from there. I would always recommend people that especially go on to do their masters. This is just my personal opinion, but I would say do the job for a couple of years first before you pick your masters, because you could pick your masters in one thing and then you come out and go, I actually really like research. I really want to go into research. So that's sort of my aim
Yeah, that's good advice. And I was given a similar piece of advice a while back, saying any study that you do should always open more doors for you. So
Yeah.
whatever you pick, it should really increases your employment opportunities in the future. So, all right.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for your time.